I can only imagine what we're going to do in 2025. So before I dig into what's really going on here, as you know, I must provide the disclaimer.
This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system announcing the commencement of another purge of the BS, sanctioned by the First Amendment. Frustration levels 0 to 100 have been authorized for use during this purge. All weapons are restricted. Government officials have not been granted immunity from the purge of the BS and shall undoubtedly receive the smoke. Commencing at the sound of the gong, any and all BS, especially unnecessary goofiness, will be purged without prejudice. Police, fire, and emergency medical services will be available, but they will be busy because they too will be watching the purge of the BS. Blessed be those who have already been victims of some BS. May God be with you all.
All right, folks, let's go. Are y'all prepared for this? They're prepared. Okay, so if you're just getting into the chat, this is Purge the BS, and we got to talk about Mr. Joe Biden and his most recent movements when it comes to commuting death row inmates, because there seems to be a lot of mixed, pissed off people, and I don't know which side I sit on, so I'm going to have a chat with y'all. Y'all can help me out, and we can move on with the next thing. Now, like I said, if you're brand new to the channel, thank you for stopping in. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell, because I just be dropping lives, and sometimes it takes a minute for it to notify. So make sure you're on that notification, okay? Now, for anybody who hasn't been paying attention, let me bring this up for them. I don't know if y'all watch Fox Business or whatever that is. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Oh, hold on, whoa. Guys, can we get the likes up? Get the likes up. If you don't know where the like button is, you got to hit the thing on the top right. 3 dots. It's a 3-dot thing on the Android phone. It took me months to figure that out. I couldn't figure out why I couldn't like stuff on the live shorts feed on the vertical. So it's a 3 dots thing. Make sure you hit that. And make sure you subscribe to this channel. Okay, let me get y'all into our story here. Yeah, we're gonna go over this little clip from, what is this, GMA or something? One of them crazy ass shows where they be talking. I wasn't ready for my music to be off yet. Special shouts to Anno Domini Beats for the track there. Much appreciated. It's hot. I love that track. All right, folks. Well, here it is. I'm gonna be simple. I'm gonna be quick. Joe Biden commuted some people who had life sentences, and these folks are talking about it, and I wanted to hear about it with y'all. So if you haven't heard about it, he pretty much commuted the sentences of everybody who was on federal death row. So let's see what they have to say about that.
President-elect Trump is slamming Joe Biden after he commuted the sentences of 37 of the 40 federal death row inmates. He posted this on Truth Social. As soon as I am inaugurated, I will direct the Justice Department to vigorously pursue the death penalty to protect American families and children from violent rapists, murderers, and monsters. We will be a nation of law and order again. Biden's decision sparking a strong reaction from the families of those inmates' victims. The daughter of Donna Major, a South Carolina bank teller who was killed during a 2017 robbery, is furious that her mother's killer was resentenced. Watch.
I am upset that this is even happening, that one man can make this decision without even talking to the victims, without any regard for what we've been through, what we're going through. I'm completely hurt, frustrated, and angry.
Another commutation includes Jorge Avila Torres. He was sentenced to die after sexually assaulting and stabbing 2 young girls to death in 2005. 8-year-old Laura Hobbs and 9-year-old Crystal Tobias. 4 years later, he strangled 20-year-old naval officer Amanda Snell. Joining me now, constitutional attorney and Supreme Court bar member Mark Smith. Mark,
What's the
I want
point
to
of
get your
that?
reaction to all of this.
Wait a second. Hold on. Before I get to whatever this dude's about to say, why would you... All right, I don't know if I'm wrong, okay? But if you have a life sentence, a federal life sentence, right? Like a death sentence, and then you change that to a life sentence, don't you still have to spend life in jail? Like till you die? Doesn't that still hold to be true? I don't know. That's my question. If anybody knows the full answer to that, make sure you throw it in the chat, because I'm just wondering, because it sounds like they're trying to say that he like pardoned some people, like he set them free, but it sounds like that's not exactly what happened. So maybe the upheaval is misdirected a little bit, but let's see. Let me see what they're talking about.
Well, I think the big picture, Cheryl, is this puts the lie to the notion that the Democrats and Joe Biden respect the rule of law. They respect the process. They even respect their own Department of Justice. That was the message we kept hearing when they were pursuing Donald Trump with all that lawfare. Then all of a sudden, it turns out Donald Trump wins the election. And next thing you know that indeed, Joe Biden has no interest in the rule of law, the process. He wants to rule as a king and basically waves a magic wand and pardons his son, Hunter Biden,
Now
and now engages in the commutation of these individuals who are found to be deserving of the death penalty by juries and judges across this country. And yeah, I think it puts a lie to the notion that Joe Biden and the Democrats respect the rule of law. At the end of the day, it's about politics to them, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it seems that politics is at play in the courts, in particular with these judicial nominations. 3 Democrat-appointed judges canceling their retirement plans. Then that blocks President-elect Trump from appointing their successors. It's thought to be a highly unusual move. It is sparking outrage from Republicans who see it as political and a maneuver for them to keep control of the courts.
You must be pretty damn confident to just be like, yeah, I'm not going to leave this position. Now, I thought this was going to be about commuting sentences, but there was a whole nother thing going on. I didn't know that all of this other stuff was going on. So now they done played that. So now I'm interested in that. Like, they canceled their retirement plans, meaning they said, we're not going to retire so that Donald Trump cannot appoint their successors. So doesn't that sound like obstruction of something? Like, doesn't that sound wrong? Like blatantly wrong, like kind of a loophole thing? I don't know. Like I said, I'm not into politics, but this stuff keeps coming across the timeline. I'm wondering what the hell is really going on. So hold on. Let me let them finish talking about whatever they're talking about, because now I'm trying to figure out what this is about.
President Biden, meanwhile, is under fire. He vetoed the Judges Act. That was a bipartisan bill that would have created 66 new judgeships. The bill had widespread support. Critics say his veto was also a political move aimed at preventing Trump from shaping the courts even further. Mark, your reaction?
I think this is a great show of weakness by the Democrats and Joe Biden, because this was a bipartisan bill, and it was going to create 22 new judgeships for the next 4 years, and another 22 and another 22 over the next 3 presidential presidencies. And what's quite interesting is almost a sign that the Democrats fear that after Donald Trump would have the opportunity to appoint 22 federal judges, that potentially President Vance might have a chance to appoint another 22. But at the end of the day, I think this speaks volumes about how the Democrats view President Trump and his ability to transform the federal judiciary from a group of many judges that are outcome oriented to a group of law and order conservatives and originalists, because there's no.
This is where I get lost. If anybody is in my chat that knows anything about politics, okay, I need your help. What is the problem with, not even the problem, what is the problem, what is the deficit that we need 22 new judges to fill? If anybody can help me understand that, that'd be great. I don't understand that. It just sounds like they're just doing stuff just so they can have something to say that somebody said no to. Like, well, why was there a necessity for that right now? But it's causing a lot of back and forth. And I think that's where my issue is. It's causing a lot of back and forth that to me is like, can we just get through these next couple of weeks and then you go get your little office and then that be what we're doing instead of creating new. Why are we creating more positions? There's more people we got to pay. So you creating these new positions to offset the ones that are already filled by these people that don't want to leave? That seems wasteful to me. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a politician. I don't proclaim to be at all. I'm just an American citizen who is watching things and has questions. So anybody that's a troll that comes into my chat, please do not come at me. You don't know politics. Guess what? I'm not a politician. So there you go. Okay? So if you can answer a question for me, do that. Other than that, shut up.
President in U.S. history since Franklin Delano Roosevelt that has done more to transform the federal judiciary than President Trump with his confirmation of 3 Supreme Court justices, Kavanaugh, Barrett, and of course Gorsuch. So yes, as far as I'm concerned, this is a show of weakness by the Democrats and Joe Biden to say they recognize that Donald Trump is very effective on this issue when it comes to federal judges.
You mentioned the Supreme Court. I do want to ask you about that as we go into this next term. One of the things that Kamala Harris campaigned on was, of course, that Donald Trump could, and now he still could, get 2 more Supreme Court nominations. That's if you have 2 retirements. I'm not saying Clarence Thomas is retiring. I'm just saying that's a possibility. What do you make of that? And are you hearing anything about the future of the Supreme Court in the next 4 years?
Well, obviously, it's always very quiet. These are lifetime decisions that justices have to make, and you have to respect the careers of Justice Thomas and Justice Alito and all the justices on the Supreme Court.
But I'm just saying, it does seem like they're real scared of him.
But obviously, these justices are aware of what happened with Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, where she unfortunately passed away at the end of Donald Trump's term and was replaced by conservative Justice Barrett. And obviously. The justices are aware of that dynamic. Now, I'm not saying that's going to influence their decision. These are very personal choices. These are lifetime appointments. But
all right, well, I don't know if y'all heard that last thing he said. Those are lifetime appointments. So once you get these positions, then you just stay there till you gone. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I thought I heard Donald Trump talking about putting age limits or term limits on a lot of those positions. So wouldn't that negate the whole lifetime position thing they're talking about, if that's what he's planning on doing? So is that why they're trying to keep people in there, because they can grandfather it? Because they got to vote on that at some point, I guess. And I guess if they keep the old school people in there, they won't vote for it. But that just seems interesting to me. Like, why do we want anybody to serve at the same job for the rest of their life? Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, for the rest of their natural life, we want them to do the same exact thing. You think they're not going to get grizzled and a little disgruntled over time and maybe get a little kind of out of it? Maybe they start to become disconnected from the job itself and it just becomes a chore. I don't know very many things that I would just like a job that I would want to do for the entirety of my adult life. And that be it. That's the job. That's what you do. You're every day. You got to do that for 40, 50, 60 hours a week for the rest of your life. I don't know, man. I think they need term limits on that kind of stuff. Some of these old ass folks need to get out of office. They're a little, we can't have them driving in the street. We already have those issues with some of the older folks, but we want them to run the government. Seems a little weird to me. If we can't let them have a license to drive, but people at the same age get a license to govern. So we're going to need them to we're going to have to pause that. Just being honest. I think if we're going to be real, we should not have people that just live unabated in their position, in a government position. You can't be elected out. You can't be nothing. The only way out is for you to stop breathing. That's stupid. That's a dumb way to do that. When everything else, you got to elect the president every 4 years, but the ones that's really making the decisions have lifetime appointments. So you wonder why things have been going on the way that they have been for so many years is because we have folks in place that have been there for years that are really the decision makers, and we're voting for the face. We're voting for the Trump part of it, but he knows, it's the cabinet, it's the Senate. That's who makes the real decisions. So I'm gonna let this guy finish his little couple of minutes here, but this whole thing seems very confusing to me. So if y'all can help me out, fill me in, please do.
Yeah, I think that's a big question. Will Donald Trump have an opportunity to nominate one or more Supreme Court justices moving forward? And that is a big question that we're going to be talking a lot about, Cheryl, in the month of June as the Supreme Court winds up this term.
No, Clarence Thomas, was in the fight of his life to get that appointment. If you go back several decades now to those confirmation hearings, which I sadly recall because of my age. Let's move on to the issue of immigration and criminal
activity.
United Healthcare CEO, murder suspect. I'm sorry. Let me stop really quick. I do want to ask you about that. There's a lot of discussions with the role of local and state officials fighting against immigration. I do want to get to the Luigi Mangione story in a moment. I apologize to the producers, but I did want to ask you about that because we're seeing this legal fight now that is beginning with immigration and some of these sanctuary cities and these city councils saying that they're going to fight back. This is all going to go to the courts, which is going to stifle Tom Homan's efforts to do these mass deportations. I did want to get your take on that.
Well, look, nothing requires state and local officials to help the federal government on any issue. But the one thing that state and local authorities are not allowed to do is interfere with the federal enforcement of law, including immigration law. Now, what's interesting, Cheryl, is that the first Trump term, we saw a lot of federal district court judges enjoy nationwide all sorts of immigration policies. But what's quite interesting, in the last 4 years with this current Supreme Court, they have made it very clear, Cheryl, that they're not going to allow federal trial judges to enter nationwide injunctions. So I think we're not going to see the same dynamic where you have a single judge in Hawaii enjoining nationwide immigration policy for this president. I think it's going to be a much different dynamic and a much more favorable one in favor of President Trump and the enforcement of federal immigration laws than we saw in 2016 and 2020.
Interesting. All right,
well,
back to Luigi Mangione, that is the murder suspect with the United Healthcare CEO that was killed. He did plead not guilty earlier in the week. I do want to get your take on this case as we move forward. He's expected back in court very soon.
Well, obviously, this is going to be a very long process, Cheryl, in terms of the legal, there's going to be discovery and exchange of information and investigations. Obviously, his attorneys will have to make a lot of decisions about the potential defense. But I think there's one important message that I think is sometimes getting lost here is to the extent that you believe that Mangione engaged in an act of terrorism, we have to be very careful about what that means, because terrorism is an act of violence where you're trying to effectuate some sort of political, social, or cultural change. And to the extent we play into his alleged hand of starting to talk about the political issues that he wanted us to discuss, we're actually rewarding bad behavior. And I think we as a nation need to be very careful. Yes, this is a case that has to be adjudicated on the merits. Did he commit the murder? What was his motive? What was the intent? Yes, you have to play out the rule of law. Of course you do. But we have to be very careful, in my opinion, not to allow, if his goal was to start a political conversation about, let's say, health insurance in America, that we don't reward that bad behavior, because it sets a very bad precedent, Cheryl, for other people down the road. We don't want to encourage.
Okay. Well, it wasn't about Mangione, but I'll make a brief statement about that. And I'm just going to keep it 100% real, even though some people don't like when I use the term percent, but you understand what I mean when I say that. This Mangione thing has become a public display. And at the end of the day, having too much public opinion and public exposure is like grounds for a mistrial, to say that the jurors can't make a non-biased opinion about your case because they've been inundated with the media and public information. And you can get a mistrial like that. So they're heading that way. Just saying. You got that. Secondarily, I read the manifesto thing that he did, and actually he doesn't admit to committing any act in that. He makes inferences to some things, but he never directly says, hey, I'm going after Brian Johnson and I'm going to take him out. And this is what, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of gray area. There's now circumstantial evidence. There's a reason for change of venue to take him out of New York City. And then the prosecution can make their own case to say that the public opinion being favorable could, mess up the jury, and the jury could rule favorably. So where are you going to take the case to? Even if you take it out of New York, everybody knows that case. So they setting him up for a whole mistrial situation. I'm just saying. Just saying. So anybody who doesn't know law at all, I'm sorry if you think that's an open and shut case, but if you want to be honest, the video of him taking that shot doesn't really have him on there. There's somebody on there. You see what I'm saying? And they could have a water bottle with his DNA around the corner, but that doesn't necessarily put a pistol in his hand, even if he had one on his person, or so to speak, when they found him. So they're going to have to do that other test to get the GSR on his hands and all that, which you may not get a few days later. That's going to be a freaking nightmare case. I'm just saying. It's all circumstantial, and he never confessed to anything, and he pled not guilty. So it's on the state to prove that he's the guy in that video and that he's the one that did that. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be one of them crazy cases like the OJ one, where you swear you know what happened, but the way that they spin the evidence, it's like certain things are going to be inadmissible. The jury's going to have to not decide on it. And if you're talking about unanimous, somebody on that jury is going to say no, and eventually it's going to be a mistrial. So mark my words, you can waste your time for the next 3 years watching that freaking trial, but it's not going to be nothing. It's going to be a mistrial or something goofy like that. So I got 2 more stories to do, and then I got some stuff I got to take care of. So giving y'all my little bit of time today because I wanted to have some quick conversations, because Joe Biden did the whole thing on Christmas Day with commuting those people. And I want you to understand where my angle is on that. If you commute some people that are on federal death row, but you're not setting them free, you're just telling them they got to still spend the rest of their life there, then that means to some degree, somebody's got to pay for them staying there the extra time. I don't really think that's what people want. The families want them people gone. And anybody that's got to pay whatever they said it was, I think it's like $30,000 or something a year to house an inmate, sometimes more depending on the jail or the facility. If that's the case, then maybe we don't want them to spend another 25 years just living. Like, they're gone from society anyway, and they're not coming out. So why should we continue to just pay for them to be there because Joe Biden don't want them to see the death penalty? I don't know. That was an interesting move by him. I'm sure it wasn't him. Just for those that don't know, Joe Biden is not doing anything other than signing stuff. They're just putting stuff in front of him, and these are other people's agendas. These are other people's ideas that he's just signing off on. He doesn't even know the people he's commuting personally. You see what I'm saying? So somebody's bringing him this and saying, look, sign off on all of these real quick, Joe, before you go. And he's like, okay, what else you got? And he's just doing it. So I don't want to say don't blame Joe Biden, but understand he's not the one who's making the actual decision. It's someone else's decision. He's signing off on it, and they're throwing his neck out there and his name out there at the end of his term. So have fun. We got a couple weeks of that left. So because we're in this